Welcome back, Root 4 students. Let's completely skip the long intro today and just dive straight into our vocabulary companion. In this explainer, we're looking at Unit 2, Input 4, Part 1. We've got some deeply connected themes to explore today, and we're really going to focus on definitions, shifting word forms, and how these expressions actually behave out in the wild to seriously boost your retention. So let's get into it.
Starting us off is Theme 1, Wealth and Abundance.
Okay, so this first cluster is all about having a whole lot of something. The first word up is abundant. Now visually lock in that this is an adjective. A cool little fun fact for you. It actually comes from a Latin root meaning to overflow in waves. So it means existing in very large quantities. Literally, way more than enough. When you use it, think of a lawyer having abundant evidence to win a case, or a lush rainforest with abundant natural resources. It's not just a little bit, right? It's a massive, plentiful amount.
Now, what's really interesting here is how we distinguish general plenty from specific financial wealth. We have abundant for huge quantities of virtually anything, but then we have affluent, which is another adjective. Affluent specifically means having a lot of money and a very good standard of living. So you wouldn't really say a forest is affluent, right? That sounds weird. Instead, you'd say you're driving through an affluent community, or maybe examining an affluent society.
And brilliantly, we have our noun forms to look at right here. Abundant shifts to the noun abundance, and affluent shifts to the noun affluence. Pretty straightforward. But hey, remember, absolutely nothing is perfect in life. Every situation has a downside, which is a noun meaning a disadvantage or a negative aspect. For example, the downside of incredible affluence might be the immense stress of managing all that wealth.
All right, let's move right along to Theme 2, Agreements and Gatherings.
This next cluster is absolutely essential when you're describing professional or scientific environments. You can almost think of this process as a three-step action plan for experts. Step 1. Imagine a team of scientists who have to convene a meeting. Convene is a verb meaning to come together. Step 2. Once they're actually together, they must carefully compile, another verb, which means to gather data from a bunch of various sources. And all of this work is done to reach step 3, a general agreement, which is our noun, a consensus. So they convene, they compile, and they reach a consensus.
So the crucial point here is that to successfully reach that scientific or medical consensus, the data, and honestly the experts themselves, must align. To align is a verb that means to be the exact same or similar, or to agree with each other. Because if their findings don't align with the core values or the hard evidence, well, the whole consensus just completely falls apart.
Okay, pivoting to Theme 3, Truths, Secrets, and Conspiracies.
But what happens when people gather for much darker reasons, Root 4 students? Because, not every group convenes to compile helpful medical data. Sometimes the alignment is entirely hidden and destructive. And that brings us to conspiracy. This noun is a secret plan made by a group of people to do something harmful or illegal. Interestingly enough, the root of this word literally means to breathe together, like they're whispering in secret. Spreading a conspiracy theory is incredibly common on the internet today, and it's literally something legitimate experts have to actively fight against all the time.
Now notice the form shift here, because this is critical for your retention. We have the noun conspiracy, which represents the secret plan itself, the actual concept. But then we have the verb conspire. To conspire is the physical action. It's the act of making that secret plan. Paying close attention to this shift from a noun to a verb is absolutely going to elevate how you write and speak.
And the only real way to stop those who conspire is to disclose the truth. This verb means to reveal or make known something that was previously hidden or kept secret. To totally defeat a conspiracy, a whistleblower must disclose the facts, creating what we call full disclosure.
Let's keep the momentum going with Theme 4, Ideas and Deep Beliefs.
Let's pivot just a little bit to how we form and defend our deepest thoughts. Before you can act on anything at all, you must first conceive it. To conceive is a verb that means to think of or imagine a plan. You are literally thinking it up from scratch inside your brain. So whether it's a brilliant new invention, a medical breakthrough, or just, a plan for the weekend, you have to conceive the idea first. Then, once you conceive that idea, if you feed it and protect it over time, it might actually grow into a strong conviction. A conviction, as a noun, is a very strong belief or opinion that you are absolutely sure of. At this point, it's no longer just a passing thought. It is a firm view that you hold tightly to your core.
So, with that really strong conviction in place, what actions can you take? Well, you have 3 powerful verbs. You might affirm your belief,
which means you loudly state or confirm it is true. You might appeal to others, meaning you try to be attractive to their reason or their emotions. Or, if your conviction is really radical, you might defy the norm entirely, choosing to just go against or contradict accepted thought.
Let's take a second to really lock these word forms into memory. The verb to affirm shifts to the noun affirmation and the adjective affirmed. To appeal transforms into the noun appeal and the adjective appealing. And to defy becomes the really powerful noun defiance. Mastering these column shifts, going from verb to noun to adjective, is the absolute secret to true vocabulary fluency.
Here's a great little mini story using all three of those verbs right in context. Take a look. When you affirm a belief that defies logic, you must appeal to emotions. Think about it. If you confirm something is absolutely true, but it actively goes against logic, your only option left is to attract or appeal to people's feelings. Makes total sense, right?
Finally, we arrive at Theme 5, Origins and Destruction.
For our final cluster today, Rote 4 students, we're going to look at the massive concepts of the absolute beginning and the absolute end of things, looking at origins. We use the verb to descend when we talk about evolving or originating from something. It means to have developed from an earlier type of creature or an ancestor. For example, evolutionary biologists study how modern birds descend from ancient dinosaurs. And never forget the noun form here, descendant. A descendant is the actual physical creature or person that comes from that lineage. So descend is the verb, the action of coming from, while descendant is the noun representing the living, breathing result of that action. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum from creating, originating, or descending, we have the verb to annihilate. This word actually contains the Latin root nihil, which literally means nothing. So it means reducing something to nothing, to destroy something or someone completely. We aren't just talking about breaking something, it means to wipe it out entirely from existence, no trace left.
And when used in common expressions, this word really means business. You might read about a devastating disease threatening to annihilate a population. Also notice the noun form here, annihilation. It is very frequently paired with the adjective total, giving us the incredibly intense expression, total annihilation.
So Root 4 students, as we wrap up this explainer, I'm going to leave you with this somewhat provocative final thought. Will your vocabulary abundance, that's a noun, descend, which is a verb, into total annihilation, another noun? Or will you affirm, verb, your knowledge? The choice is absolutely yours. Practice these forms.
Welcome back, Route 4 students. Grab that vocabulary companion because we are diving right in. No messing around today. We've got an awesome set of words to tackle from Unit 2, Input 4, Part 2. Our whole goal here is to really lock these definitions, word forms, and expressions into your brain so you can effortlessly use them in your reading and writing. Ready? Let's do this.
Starting off with Theme 1, Grasping the Truth.
To make things a bit easier to digest, I've chopped up your vocabulary companion into 4 main themes. This first one is all about understanding and evaluating information. And our very first word is a verb, to grasp. Now, physically, grasping means grabbing onto something tightly with your hands, right? But here we're talking about your mind. To grasp means to fully understand something, especially when it's super complex or tricky. It's like your brain is getting a firm grip on a tough idea. Think back to when you first looked at, say, quantum physics, or those really tangled English grammar rules. It probably took a minute for your mind to truly grasp how it all worked.
When you look at how this is used in the real world, you're going to see phrases like grasp a concept. And when you're talking about how tough a subject is, you might say it's either easy to grasp or hard to grasp. Visualizing that mental grip really helps make this one stick. Actually, when you're writing your essays later this term, ask yourself, have I made my main argument easy to grasp for the reader?
But hey, what if you just know something without having all the facts laid out? Well, that brings us to the adjective intuitive. When something is intuitive, it's based purely on your gut feelings or instinct rather than deep, careful reasoning. It's that immediate sense you get before you've even had a chance to overthink it. Like, have you ever walked into a room and intuitively known that a friend was upset without them saying a single word? Yep, that's your intuition kicking in.
Let's look at the whole word family here. Be sure to note the noun form, intuition, and the adverb, intuitively. You might have an intuitive belief, or just feel intuitively about a situation. But pay special attention to the opposite, counterintuitive. If something is counterintuitive, it goes completely against what your gut instinct is screaming at you. Honestly, it's a fantastic word to drop into an academic essay when a surprising fact totally contradicts common sense.
All right, shifting gears from gut feelings to pure logic, we've got the adjective plausible. If a claim or a story is plausible, it just seems reasonable. It's likely to be true even if nobody has actually proven it yet. It makes sense on the surface. To put that into perspective, if you go way back in history, it was entirely plausible that the Earth was flat based just on everyday observation. I mean, you look outside, it looks flat. So the explanation was plausible, even though, we later proved it was definitely false.
In a more normal, everyday scenario, if a buddy is late to class and says their car broke down, you might just nod and say, well, that seems like a plausible explanation. Totally believable. Oh, and as you're making notes in your vocabulary companion, don't forget it has a noun form, plausibility, and an adverb form, plausibly.
Now, on the flip side, if you do not find a claim plausible, you might just be our next word, a skeptic. As a noun, a skeptic is someone who doubts whether something is true, especially when we're talking about scientific claims. There's a fun little spelling quirk here too. You can spell it with a C, which is the British way, or with a K, which is how the Americans do it. Both are completely correct, so don't let that trip you up when you're doing your reading.
Make sure to lock in those spelling variations for the other forms too. The actual state of doubting is the noun skepticism. The descriptive word is the adjective skeptical, and the action is the adverb skeptically. You're going to see these everywhere in the news, things like a climate skeptic, or hearing that experts remain skeptical because of some growing skepticism.
Moving right along to theme 2, building and breaking ideas.
Okay, so we've talked about how to grasp and evaluate the truth. Now let's look at the words we use to actively back up or tear down those concepts. When you want to officially support or promote an idea, you use the verb to endorse. To endorse is basically putting your stamp of approval on something. And here's a neat piece of trivia for you. The word endorse actually comes from the Latin word endorsar, which literally means to put on the back, which makes total sense, because even today, how do you endorse a check? You sign your name right on the back of it.
When you're reading academic texts, you'll see authors endorse a view or endorse a claim. And listen, Route 4 students, endorsing a view is such a brilliant high-level phrase. You should absolutely use it in your papers when you're citing researchers who agree with your thesis. Out in the commercial world, obviously you see products endorsed by celebrities all the time. And the act of giving that support, that's our noun form, an endorsement.
This brings us to a really great pair of natural opposites. First up, we have the verb to reinforce, which means to make an idea, a belief, or even a physical structure way stronger. Then, as its total opposite, we have the verb to undermine. This means to weaken or damage something right from the foundation, like trust or confidence. So it's building up versus breaking down. To really remember undermine, picture it literally. Imagine an enemy army digging a mine underneath a massive castle wall until the whole foundation just gives out and collapses. That is exactly what you're doing to an argument when you undermine it.
Notice how these work in common phrases. We reinforce a belief or reinforce an idea, giving us the noun form reinforcement. On the other hand, a huge scandal or some fake news might undermine public trust or undermine the consensus. Treating these two as direct opposites makes them so much easier to remember.
All right, let's jump to theme 3, the test of time.
This section is all about duration, the pace of change, and just how certain we are as time rolls on. We've got another essential pairing here. The adjective enduring describes something that lasts for a really long time. It's permanent, it doesn't weaken. Then, totally flipping that, we have the adjective provisional. If something is provisional, it's not final. It's temporary, tentative, and highly likely to be changed down the line. So permanent versus temporary.
Pay close attention to the different word forms for these. A historical event might have an enduring impact, showing a ton of endurance, that's the noun form, or the ability to endure, which is the verb. Now, taking a breath and looking at the flip side, scientists will often release provisional results while they wait to gather more data. The noun form here is provision, which ties right back to the verb to provide.
So, if a change doesn't just happen overnight, how does it happen? Well, it happens incrementally. This is an adverb that just means gradually, or step by step. You start at a base level, you advance incrementally, and you grow incrementally. When you need to describe a slow, steady progression in one of your essays, using the adjective incremental or the adverb incrementally is a surefire way to elevate your academic writing. And honestly, when things are provisional or just changing incrementally step by step, we run into our next word, the noun tentativeness. Tentativeness is that feeling of not being fully certain or confident. It's this state of hesitancy or caution, simply because you don't have all the final answers yet.
You'll definitely want to know the adjective tentative and the adverb tentatively. When you're reading academic research, you are going to see the phrase scientific tentativeness a lot.
It's the whole idea that science is always open to being revised when new facts pop up. A researcher might state their findings with tentativeness, acknowledging there's a degree of tentativeness to what they've concluded. And remember, true experts are rarely 100% certain. Expressing that scientific tentativeness is actually a massive sign of rigorous, honest research, not a weakness.
And that brings us to our final section, Theme 4, Risks and Unknown Variables.
For this last part, we're tackling words that deal with danger, unpredictability, and vulnerability. Let's look at the noun hazard. It's a really straightforward but powerful word. A hazard is just a direct synonym for a danger, a threat, or a risk. Think of it as a potential source of harm that's just lurking in the environment. Fun fact, the word hazard actually comes from an old French and Arabic word for a game of dice. Knowing that little linguistic history makes it so clear why the word is tied to chance, luck, and risk today. The crucial thing is how we actually talk about these risks. A real hazard, like hazardous waste, uses the adjective form hazardous. And these hazards become way more dangerous if you are susceptible to them. The adjective susceptible means you are easily influenced, affected, or harmed by something. Basically, you're vulnerable. The noun form is susceptibility, and you're always susceptible to something. Like in our digital age, we're constantly talking about how people are susceptible to the misinformation pushed by social media algorithms. Finally, think about this for a second. If a hazard doesn't follow any logical pattern, does it just occur randomly? Yeah, it does. Randomly is our very last adverb for today, and it means something happens purely by chance, with zero plan or pattern. You might spot a random pattern or see events occur randomly. Which leaves us with a pretty provocative thought. If so much in our world occurs randomly and so many claims out there are merely provisional, isn't firmly grasping this academic vocabulary literally your best defense against unpredictability? Mastering these exact words ensures you aren't ever just guessing. You actually have the tools to understand, evaluate, and explain the world around you. Fantastic work today, Rote 4 students. Make sure you review your vocabulary companions and keep building that knowledge.